Yay. We're just about in.
So you start streaming on Zoom, and then you somehow copy paste the code into YouTube?
So it just connects in right away. It's awesome. It's a feature of Zoom. So you can do
Wow.
it to YouTube or Facebook. Yeah, I'll show it to you. It's so great. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome today. We are live with Bryan Colter. We're having him back, which is so great, Bryan. I just love that people are like, yes, you two should do more videos. That's always a nice feeling, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Happy to be back. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's good to get that encouragement, and I can keep my day job. So let's
I know, you and me
let's
both,
do this.
right? We,
What's that?
you and me both, we get to stay employed.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's a great time to be looking at the symbols. It always is, but especially during dramatic times, we can glean some information from the music of the spheres and have a deeper layer of understanding in terms of the archetypal realities that are touching every soul. So it can be useful. I'm very excited to talk about this very, very powerful eclipse coming up.
Yes, this is good stuff. And so if you're new to this channel, welcome. Today we're doing what's called an eat and greet. We have a friend over. We talk about an event or we teach a lesson in astrology that you will benefit from. And we give you some things to look at in the chart, things to think about, and talk about how we use these symbols. So today we're going to be talking about the new moon solar eclipse that is coming June 21st here. We're just days away. I mean, it's just coming through this weekend. So not too far at all. And eclipses are beautiful openings for us of change. And usually when we're experiencing eclipse energy, we don't experience that for 4 to 6 weeks like we can with other eclipses. These sometimes have a longer shelf life to them. So we'll actually be able to look from this eclipse, which is significant and at the solstice time, all the way until December when we experience the next one, but we can also trace them back. So hopefully we'll talk a little bit about that today to about 19 years ago. 2001, what was happening in your life at the solstice time. So we'll get to jump in and talk about all of this today, but I welcome you in. Hopefully you brought a snack, some questions. I'll be handling the chat, and we are gonna talk about this big daddy that's coming up just this weekend and in front of all of these exciting shifts that are happening, right? We've got Mercury heading into retrograde. What it's Tuesday, so Thursday. We're going to have the eclipse happen just like a day later. Neptune's going to station retrograde. A couple days later, we've got the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. Mars moves into Aries. It's just like, I feel like we're chugging here a little bit. We're just chugging right along. And then on top of all of that, we're in a heavy retrograde season. So we're trying to chug along, but then also kind of stuck in that a little bit. So the major aspect of this particular eclipse is to Saturn, right? And the rest are events kind of happening around it. So, okay, I'm being a microphone hog. Bryan, let's talk about this.
Can you hear me? Am I here? Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
you are.
yeah, this is, I mean, it makes sense. You can get on a tangent with this because there's so much to look at. This is a massive event. This is, in my opinion, the biggest eclipse of the year. And there's a variety of reasons for that. One of the biggest reasons is it's happening right on the summer solstice, at least for the northern hemisphere, which is, eclipse on the summer solstice. They're both a time of great change. And when you have both of them together, it's like dramatic turning points. Eclipses are agents of change, but we really turn that all the way up to maximum, when it's happening on the solstice. And historically, cultures all over the world have used solstices to do rituals, to have great parties, to bring on the new season, because they realize that the veils between worlds are a little thinner then. They can receive divine guidance. They can send out intentions for the new season, powerful times for manifestation, and bold new beginnings. Okay. And so the solstice has given it some, turbo power, but they're also this new moon the solar eclipse is a new moon, is happening right next to the nodes. And the closer that the eclipse is to the nodes, the more powerful it is. And here they are just a hair over 1 degree apart. So that gives it some extra chili powder as well. And we talked a lot about the nodes in our last video we did together a few weeks ago, or however many weeks ago. It's all a blur at this point, you know, especially for us like mercurial folks. It's like zoom, 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 zoom. But I'm not done yet. I mean, there's more reasons why this is so powerful. Another reason is it's at the midway point, okay, of the year, of course. But this year, as I've been calling the Great Awakening, is such an important year for humanity because we have all these major astrological events happening. The two biggest ones, in my opinion, of course, is the Jupiter, excuse me, the just words just swim in my head. Just when I'm asleep, I'm probably like when I'm asleep at night, I'm like, my wife is hearing me say Jupiter, Jupiter, Saturn, Libra, you know. Anyways, so yeah, not Jupiter, but the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that happened in January at the beginning of the year. Every astrologer on the planet's been talking about that event for like the last year and a half. That's a big one. That was a major kickstart of the beginning of this year. And then the end of the year, we have the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that happens on the winter solstice, you know, right at the same day. Wow, isn't that amazing? So this eclipse is happening at the midway point between those two major events, serving as bookends to this momentous year, the year of great change, the Great Awakening. Now, of course, with Saturn and Pluto in the mix, it's going to be a bumpy ride, as we've been seeing, no doubt. Now, as you said, we got some planets about to go retrograde, which implicit in that is that they're slowing down in the sky right now. Before a planet either goes direct or retrograde, from our perspective on Earth, it appears as though it stands still in the sky, known as when a planet stations. So we have basically 3 planets stationing right now. Mm-hmm. We have Neptune stationing. It's about to go retrograde on June 21st, you know, right there, right around that same time. We have Mercury stationed right now, about to go retrograde. And then Venus is effectively stationing right now. It's still retrograde, but it'll be going direct, I think, around June 24th. So 3 planets stationing. And whenever a planet's stationed, the archetypal field that that planet is connected to is at maximum pulse. Stations are very powerful, okay? Not only that, but we also have Mars going into its own sign of Aries. So much going on. You know, it's not just one thing. I think I just rattled off, you know, 6 things, which are each and of themselves massive subjects. But the point I'm trying to drive home is this is a powerful event, okay, and a dramatic pivot point. And as you said, it's a 6-month wave. You know, it's not just setting a new intention for the next month or 2. No, it's 6 months. And what's special about that is not only is it a 6-month wave, but you also have, as you said, Mars entering its own sign of Aries, okay, June 27th, right around there. Now, Mars, when it's in its own sign, it's really juicy, you know, much like when a planet stations, really powerful. And Mars usually spends about 2 months in a given sign, but here it's about to spend 6 months in its own sign, overlap with the 6 months of the eclipse wave. So, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people's eyes are turning glassy at this point. That was a lot of, terminology, but it's like, wow, this is big.
This is big. This is big. And I think about, as I was just looking at the chart of it here, because we come to not only the Mercury retrograde, but we also come to this eclipse with Venus not yet out of retrograde, it means 4 out of 5 of our visible planets are backwards. That's a big deal for us, I think, at this particular time, and throws us entirely into a state of what's going on my insides, right? Because the internal vibe is going to attract all of the rest of the tribe and all of the rest of the things externally as well. And that's big news, because at the eclipse, what we start for good or for ill, what we're focusing in on, what we're kind of bringing down to ground. That's the deal. Man, that's a big deal, I think, for absolutely all of us.
Yeah, and like attracts like, what we focus on, where our attention goes, energy flows. And we're headed into the season of the warrior.
Yes.
All this, warrior energy deals with conflict, on the negative side. But people, I think, inwardly are feeling a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, and with all the retrograde planets, retrograde planets, I look at the energy of that planet where it's turned inward. Okay. So it's really a good time to be reflective about our anger. What is the source of our anger, and what can we do with it in a way that comes from love and light, instead of some of the behavior associated with Mars, which can be more destructive, which stems more from fear or hatred, So in these inward times of reflection and contemplation, really leveraging the power of these retrograde planets, how can we deal with our own anger within, and how can we engage assertively in life, that warrior energy, and courageously for the betterment of ourselves, our loved ones, and ultimately humanity? Because during this year of Great Awakening, we're going through this major pivot point, okay? And therefore, manifesting the higher octave expression of the warrior energy is really key here. And where we can kind of focus it a little bit more is by looking at the sign that the eclipse is actually happening in, which is Cancer, which is an emotional sign. It emphasizes this idea of sensitivity, emotional sensitivity. So during heavy sensitive times, we get hurt a little bit more easily, and we can lash out, we can be reactive, we can be triggered in more aggressive, martial ways. And that's why it's important to reel it back, go within, and set a new intention of really working with Cancer in an evolved way, which is ultimately about healing. Okay? Healing, fierce healing. There's the warrior and the Cancer energy, which is about self-nurturing, but helping to heal other people as well. So are we going to be assertive and heal, or we can hide? Because that's the shadow side of Cancer, known as the crab in astrology. Okay, there can be a shadow element of Cancer, of hiding in the shell. So are we going to be assertive and heal, or hide inside the shell of the crab? That's a good sort of journaling prompt or question to ask yourself before going into meditation, as you do this sort of, let's say, ceremonial beginning of this new season. It's like, how can I heal in my life? What radical new dramatic shifts, new beginnings can I take to not only foster a very high expression of my inner warrior, but also have more healing energy for myself and turned outwards? Okay, where attention goes, energy flows. And where the attention really needs to be going right now is towards healing and becoming the spiritual warrior. And I'm tying in that word spiritual here, because this is a good time to backtrack and just visit those those stationing planets right now.
Absolutely.
Neptune stationing on the solstice and the lunar eclipse, maximum Neptunian pulse. And Neptune's the god of the sea, metaphor for the sea of consciousness. It's about collective consciousness, God consciousness, very metaphysical, spiritual planet. So we want to tap into not only that warrior energy, but the spiritual warrior. So fierce introspection, looking at yourself with tenacity, and understanding all the emotions and thoughts you're having day in and day out, which 80% of our thoughts and emotions we have each day are habitual. They're deeply ingrained in us. If we could project out onto a large screen and actually see the thoughts that we repeatedly have every single day, we probably think we're crazy, but they kind of happen under the radar. The monkey mind likes to, let its presence be known. Okay. So following the path of the spiritual warrior is fiercely looking within and looking at each of those thoughts and emotions and choosing those thoughts and emotions that foster more healing, more compassion. High in Cancer is about compassion. High in Neptune's about compassion. It's about unconditional love. And then really focusing on bolstering those higher octave, higher consciousness emotions and thoughts, loving thoughts that stem under the umbrella of love. And then recognizing with fierce honesty, without praise or blame on either end, because that's just opposite sides of the same coin, but just with this fierce observation and choosing, aggressively choosing the love and light thoughts and emotions instead of the more destructive ones. And both are going to try to make their presence known. This is an edgy 6 months we're headed into. There's no doubt about it. We're already seeing it. It's a very dramatic time.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
And I think that if we look back, because I got to take us back, I feel like this is a PowerPoint, when we were having just the lunar eclipse here, just on the 5th of, like, just what, 2 weeks ago, the sun and Mars are square each other. And this is, when we talk about that hero's journey, it doesn't mean that you are comfortable in the unknown. I mean, everything we're telling you here, we're walking together to say everything you've known is shifting and changing, most specifically you, like your insides, the mode of operation we've been able to do business in and do day-to-day life is significantly changing. And as we change, doesn't mean it is comfortable. This is the unknown world out here. Who are you going to be next? Who are you going to be if you're not rushing around 9 to 5? Who are you going to be if you actually deal with that thing? Who are you going to be if you're joyful and you move towards the thing that makes you joy, but maybe not a ton of money, right? Can you exist on that? There is a lot in the portion of the hero's journey that happens in that Sun Mars square that challenges the identity to a max. But I love a square because it also motivates us to do something, to be about something, because we can't stay where we're at. And we get to see more of this energy perpetuate itself out and relook at it again in October of this year. So it's okay. Be okay with being uncomfortable. That is all right. Because when I come to the edge of my soul, everything I think I know, I can't see over that cliff. I don't know what's down there. And that's a scary place to be if I'm honest, right? But that's also the place where I either get wings or I find out that the ground is closer than I thought. I only grow by taking the leap. So when Bryan's talking about this fierce introspection, it's that I don't have the illusion of a routine that's 9 to 5. Everything's open. I can just go buy this. I can just go do this. I can pretend I'm not good at what I'm good at. I don't have those illusions anymore. I'm here. I'm in the world. Our world is being challenged with questions, and I'm in it, and I'm a part of that, and we all are. So I think being and understanding that there have been points throughout the month while challenging are also our helpers, and that it's not always just clear and bright, and I'm just over here with the octave of love. Sometimes I am uncomfortable to find my way into the sunlight, and that's okay. We can be uncomfortable on the internet together, you know, and make our way towards our evolution together. Okay.
And it can be very uncomfortable, and scary. Like you rolled out that word scary. And, so far I was talking about Mars, a lot of this sort of, wave of anger that we're going to see really over the six months. And again, that stems from more fear. Okay. We have this stark juxtaposition between light and dark here on planet Earth, and finding out where we are in that scale and striving to be more light than dark is really the process of raising our evolution, or raising our consciousness and our evolution, which is ultimately, the grand purpose of even being here. But every time we get sucked down into anger, okay, it brings us down to the lower octave expression of consciousness. It's still charged, it's heated, it's got life to it, but it doesn't stem from love and light oftentimes. So anger is going to be a big part of it, but so is fear.
Fear.
So much fear. That's another emotion so classic with Mars, the warrior archetype. If you contemplate the warrior, it's like, what does the warrior do? Or how do we envision the warrior? Well, the warrior is brave, courageous, because they face their fears. So it's also this 6-month wave, the healing element of facing our fears to evoke courage.
Absolutely.
Again, yeah.
Grab a teacher. Grab a teacher. There is no need to travel alone. You can go to the inside by yourself, ask somebody how to help you get there. Jupiter, Pluto, this is going to be delicious for finding a teacher, finding a helper to help the hero go into that big dark cave. It'll be
Yeah.
critical mass.
Yeah, and find a teacher that'll help you tap into that warrior. Maybe it's time to take some Brazilian jiu-jitsu classes or something, you know.
Get into the introspective ninja dance, guys. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Easier said than done, you know. But you know, in my opinion, that's really the evolutionary intention. It's all about healing. It's about raising our consciousness with that trying to cultivate that unconditional love. And of course, this is a year of great change. We want this great change for humanity as we cement ourselves in this Aquarian age, which is very much about equality, okay, humanitarian energy. And feels like a bit of a class warfare right now between the haves and the have-nots. So the change is going to happen. You know, it's what we do during the change that really matters, and focusing on this healer warrior energy. And if you fuse those together, you have the mother archetype of Cancer, you have the warrior archetype of Mars. What do they have in common? They both defend and protect the weak and those who can't defend themselves. Okay, so there's strong protector energy too over the next 6 months, kind of mama bear energy, papa bear energy. So tapping into that, again, never forgetting about the Neptunian sort of vein of unconditional love. And then also Venus stationing too effectively right now. Supercharged Venus, goddess of love, you know, goddess of peace, tranquility. So the peace warrior, the spiritual warrior, you know, these are the sort of meta archetypes we really want to be working with in our meditative time as we, you know, transition from one season to the next. And as I said at the very beginning, you know, cultures from all over the world have used not only lunar eclipses, but solstices, and here they happen at the same time, for, you know, creating a magic spell of intention. You know, and in this case, creating the spell of intention for world peace. I'm a big fan of live meditations and group meditations where we come together with the common goal of betterment for all. And as a shameless plug here, I just like to say that I'm going to be doing a live meditation on my YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing it on, I wrote it here, the 20th, okay, this week. On the solstice. It'll be a little bit before actually, but hey, I'm in Portugal. I'm in a funky time zone. So I'll be doing that on the 20th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So anybody who wants to join me with a group meditation, Stormie, if you can come, that'd be great too. And we can really, I'll probably give an introductory talk about very much the same thing we're talking about today, to just kind of set the tone and the intention for the meditation so that we can really tap into this Cancer spirit, a higher octave Mars, you know, Neptune, etc. So I'm excited about that.
Good. Yeah. We'll probably be flooding over there to see you. You know what I mean? That's kind of the nice thing about being a part of a community that wants to learn and wants to engage is, you know, I have the privilege of hanging and being a part of people who want to do the work, which is beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. So, and just before the eclipse, we've got the sun coming into a conjunction with that north node. So we're walking forward just in days before, right? What's the purpose? Where am I going? What am I doing? And so leading all of that, then we have this eclipse and then a meditation. Yes.
Bring it on. Yeah.
Snacks is the only Taurus question I have.
Where's the snacks? Is that what you said?
Yeah. I always want to know if there's going to be snacks.
Oh, yeah. That's a very Cancerian question too, you know? Yeah. So, yeah. And of course, the nodes is what we talked about in the last video. If anybody wants to know a little bit more about the nodes changing signs very recently into Sagittarius and Gemini, they can look back in your videos a few weeks and find that one, because it does feel like, as I said briefly, in my opinion, feels like class warfare in a lot of ways. But it's also feels like a war of ideas.
Yes.
Sagittarius, Gemini, that axis is about information, it's about learning, and truth bombs. There's a lot of a war energy going on with the warrior. And when I say bombs, I obviously don't mean literal bombs. We're talking about bombs of ideas, truth bombs. Everybody's got their perspective. Everybody's got their Sagittarian South Node sort of dogma belief system. And then if anybody believes they know what reality is, they've got blinders. So we're attempting to tap into more of that Geminian spirit of perceiving reality more clearly and understanding that, my version of reality probably wasn't exactly right. And based on the influx of information, the kind of the feeling of data dump over really the next year and a half, is going to be a paradigm buster for many people. And the controlling the perception of the public has been a way that the haves, they've leveraged that for quite some time. And that's starting to deteriorate in this year of great change. And then when we get this, truthful energy of the Gemini, it's going to rock a lot of worlds, but it's a useful change because we'll be able to perceive reality more clearly. And so that we can come together and work together for the betterment of us collectively, which I'm very excited. I know it feels pretty tense right now, but I'm very optimistic about where we're headed into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know we've talked a lot about it in this community for sure, and many of the astrological communities, that it is genuinely this sense of labor, right? It is a mess. And I don't know. I had my first daughter and was in labor for 27 hours. And they told me when I had the second one, oh, it's usually shorter. And I had her in 26 hours. So I was like,
It
not
was
really,
shorter.
right? I'm like, not enough savings for a third kid, but it was a mess. There is a lot happening to get into position to safely birth something new. And it is not comfortable all the time. You know what I mean? But what comes on the other side is new life. And I think it's interesting that you say bombs, truth bombs this time, because we're in that Gemini Sag axis. So, yes, clarity, value of information, transparency. But if we track back 19 years and look at this eclipse on the solstice, 2001, and what did we have around here? We had bombs. We had 9/11, right? It was a big deal in the time, in that 6 months that we had. So, and in the United States chart, that was a big deal for us, right? Things became uncovered, new information was revealed, something acted as a catalyst for a new birth to everything that we've known. And now here we are with the truth bombs, unlearning Sagittarian energy, what we thought we knew, and adding something else in that Gemini axis. So it is a wonderful time, but it's messy.
It's messy, and that's okay. And, everything
Okay.
has a purpose, and tapping into that Neptune of, the divine plan. It's all part of the divine plan. Let's just have faith. Let's be as loving as we can. That doesn't mean we should be doormats.
Right.
You know,
Right. Yep.
or spiritual bypass or none of that stuff. We still need to be actively engaged. That Mars has to be part of the mix. Okay. But we have to go more towards, like a warrior, charge forward towards a higher level of consciousness and setting that as a strong intention for the solstice and eclipse. And of course, if you know where 0 degrees of Cancer is in your birth chart, you can understand what area of your life you can kind of narrow it down and pinpoint, the area of your life where you can focus this new beginning. Not forgetting about the Cancer and the Mars and all that, but apply it more specifically into your life. And I know we're going to do a live reading here. I don't know if you wanted to jump into that yet, but to give an example of how you can play with the symbols and make it more exacting so that you can make this powerful new intention for you during the solstice eclipse, make it more specific and targeted.
Yeah. Shall we? I know it's like 9:30 already. It just, when you get in, it's like you just get going. So we
Yeah.
better jump into this chart reading. So as we're going through and showing you the way that this is going to play out for Miss Jessica here, think about where you see the 0 degrees of Cancer in your chart, the aneretic degree of 29 for that Gemini North Node in your chart. You can start to kind of see how this is going to work together. Do you want to share on your side?
Yes, I do.
There you go. I just made you co-host. Sorry, forgot to do that.
Oh, there we go. Now I have the authority.
That's right. Now you have the power. It's like you've waited all day for some power. Here you go.
I felt so mute and meaningless before that moment. All right. I'm sorry. I'm getting my screen ready here.
That's okay. While you're doing that, I'm going to talk about some more points of the day before we jump into the chart, you guys. So as we come into this 0 degree solar eclipse that's happening, what we see is that the eclipse has this beautiful interaction with Saturn, but it's this position where we're trying to open and start something new, but there's a confusion. The thing I like about quincunx energy is that it is both sides are correct. Right? But a quincunx is like, I'm confused. We have to adjust. I have to adjust and correct. How do I get this out there? So the movement forward that we are maybe trying to achieve feels a little bit slowed down. All in respects to that we've got heavy retrograde energy happening at this particular time. But the eclipse itself is actually happening right next to the transiting North Node. So this acts like this kind of portal to, yes, you can't see it now, but the forward motion is coming. It is available, and anything's possible with that nodal energy. You know, we have a lot of conversation happening in the world about conversation. What do I do? What do I say here? I can't breathe is a very big thing going on, which has gone further than just one event, right? But we also have this other side of energy with the media in the world. So we pull a position of transparency here. And one of the things in the world I've been able to see is people taking to YouTube or their own platforms who are actually very good researchers and very good fact checkers. So we are starting to pull power away from the media as well. But when I zero this down into our own individual lives, it's like, where do you have an opportunity to rethink or to communicate more clearly? Right? That's the forward motion as we are using that kind of portal. I hate that word actually, but this kind of like vacuum with the node and this eclipse coming together. So it's a good time, but the payout may be delayed, but do the work anyway.
Got to do the work.
Got to do the work. Right?
Yep.
What did they say? Kevin Hart says, everybody wants to get paid, but nobody wants to do the work. I just thought that was the best. They had a whole chant about it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind getting paid for not working, but hey, you know, I got a Virgo moon, so I always have to work, you know. It's like work, meaningful work, you know, is really where it's at for me. Not so much about money, although that helps too. I mean, we have to exist here, you know. And luckily, this astrology is, you know, paying the bills, and I can, you know, help people by talking about the symbols. It's like, I really feel blessed. I don't know about you, Stormie, but this is really, really fun for me. So.
Yeah, this is a blast. People ask all the time, like, why I'm so dressed up in my videos. And I'm like, because it is an absolute pleasure to do what I do. The astrology community is my favorite group to get dressed up for.
Even though you're in sweats around the house, you know, most of the day. Yeah. You show up, you know, that's great. Yeah. And you look smashing, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you. There's so much highlighter on me right now. I'm basically a sunbeam.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm suffering from a little bit of a stomach bug, so I'm pale as a ghost. So we have a nice contrast going on. I should have brought sunglasses for everybody on the live call so they don't get blinded. You might have a gamma or brightness tweak on your monitor.
That's brilliant. Okay, you ready on that side? Let's take a look at Miss Jessica.
Okay, yes. Let me screen share.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Can you see me now?
Yes, and it looks like it is also getting ready to come through on YouTube. So perfect.
Okay. So here we are. looking at the ongoing saga of one Jessica. And right now I have what's called a bi-wheel up. I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor. I hope you can, so you can kind of follow the bouncing ball. But the inner ring here is Jessica's birth chart placements, and the outer ring is the transits, where the planets are in the sky. And I have it set for June 20th, the exact time of the eclipse, which, by the way, happens at 11:41 p.m. Pacific on the 20th. And as we can see here, we said before, look at 0 degrees Cancer in your chart. Well, for Jessica, it's right in her 12th house. Now I'm going to remove this bi-wheel just for a second. I'll bring it back. But let's just look at her birth chart for a second. Mm-hmm. This 12th house, it's a biggie for her. She's got her sun in Cancer. There's that sign Cancer again. She's entering her wheelhouse of energy here into her own season. But she's got the sun in Cancer in the 12th house. She's got the north node of the moon in Cancer as well, next to the sun. And she also has Mercury in Gemini. My computer froze for about 5 seconds there. Did I cut out?
Nope, you're beautiful.
Okay, good. I got really nervous there because my mouse stopped moving. Okay. So she's got a few planets here in the 12th house. And of course, the sun is so important. The sun is center of everything. It represents our identity, our ego, but not in the negative sense of the word, our values, our self-image, the things in life that we must be true to feel whole, sane, and vital. So sanity and vitality are really fed in us by having a strong response to our sun. And that's contingent upon, for Jessica, really mastering this Cancer energy as well as 12th house energy, which this solstice/eclipse is landing on in her chart. Wow. And not only that, I'm just laying the groundwork here. We'll get into the meaning in a second here. So here you can see on the outer ring, there it is, happening 0 degrees. But I actually want to add another ring here.
Yeah, progressed.
Progressed. Okay. So her progressed moon, 15 degrees of Cancer. Now, back to a quick little astrology 101 lesson here. What does the moon mean? Well, the sun, as I described it, center of our heads, our core identity, knowing who we are and where we're headed in life and having gas in the tanks to get there. That's all sun stuff. Core of our identity. The moon is the core of our chest. It's our heart. It's our soul. It's our emotional world, our subjective reality. It's about instincts. It's our mood. And for Jessica, her moon is in Aquarius in the 8th house, which is a big subject way beyond the scope of this reading. But understanding her Aquarian 8th house path in this life will give her clues on how to maintenance her own moon, which is to say her heart, her emotional well-being, emotional balance, secret of self-nurturing for her. And that will always be the case, Aquarius 8th house. But we also have what's called the progressed moon. Now, the literal moon whips around the earth pretty quickly, about once every 27 and a half days. But if we slow down the cycles of time, we'll get a sense for the progressed moon, which takes about 27 and a half years to make it around the chart. And we experience about 2 or 3 of them per lifetime on average. And I know you talked about lunar progressions a lot with my teacher, Stephen Forrest, just a week or 2 ago. I watched that video. It was amazing. And so if you're interested to learn more about progressions and lunar phases, I recommend you check out that video. It's on Stormie's channel. Anyhow, progressed moon is the evolving needs of the heart, the evolving emotional needs for her. Moon archetypally known as the Great Mother. And the Great Mother, we sit the Great Mother before Jessica and she says, Jessica, come here, sit on my lap. What do you need? What do you need during this time of your life? Well, looky here. She needs 12th house. It's right near where the solstice is happening. It's popping a squat right on her sun. They're only a hair over a degree apart from each other. It's next to her north node of the moon. Mm-hmm. And it's been in the 12th house since September of 2018. It will enter the first house of her chart November of 2020. So there's going to be a dramatic shift for Jessica, November of 2020. And what's interesting about that for me is if we rewind a little bit and discuss about this 6-month wave of the new intention, the dramatic change, the dramatic new beginning of the eclipse, creating a 6-month wave in her life, ending just a month after she goes through this new house. Progressed moon hasn't been in her first house for, almost 28 years. So that's a big subject, and we'll get into it. But I'm emphasizing how dramatic this energy is in her 12th house, which in her lifetime, she's trying to get her PhD in.
Mm-hmm.
She has the karma of somebody who comes from 6th house, Capricorn, South Node in Capricorn in the 6th house. Her last lifetime, maybe even her last set of lives, she's really been working on this Capricorn 6th house energy. I don't want to get too much into the karma, but in a pistachio nutshell, it feels like unending duty, responsibilities. Even with Saturn and Mars, the two malefics square the nodes, we can kind of take that and a little bit more extreme analysis of that and say borderline slavery. I don't think she was a literal slave. There seems to be more 4th house family symbolism here, so slave to family in some way. I didn't do a full karmic analysis here, but something in her heart hardened through the past life experience of being under orders by family, defined by family, eclipsed by family. And now during this eclipse, the karmic wave is breaking in her life because it's stimulating the North Node, not only through the solstice and eclipse itself, but through the progressed moon sitting on the North Node.
Yeah, and I want to jump in with you real
Please,
quick.
please.
So
Yeah.
in her progressed lunar phase, which she's got another bit of time with this, what Bryan is talking about as well and tapping into the connections to family, because when Jessica was born, she was born under a full moon phase. There's a lot of the identity that becomes attached to what our families have to say, what they think, what they're about, the mother and the father kind of dynamic that's there. And as she's progressing now, she's in what we call the balsamic phase. So there are things that have been coming off of the scene and she has been shedding for quite some time. And some of that has a lot to do with not only her own identity, but letting things go that don't suit and fit the work that she's doing right now. And what that can tend to feel like is a sense of loss, or it's like you almost feel a little bit like you're going crazy. So Jessica, if that's you, you're right on track. Right? I'm going a little crazy. All of these things are starting to fall out, but it's this beautiful place of letting go of what can't travel forward with you anymore. And it is highly introspective, like all of this Gemini stimulation of the mind. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Jessica has not entirely enjoyed that, because it's more about where is my emotional base? What do I need in my own emotional security and psychological foundation, because she's pulling away from so much of the family stuff. So I just want to point that out in this balsamic phase, that's a big portion of what happens. And then you activate within that some eclipse stuff. And you're going to see that as this lunation cycle begins to move forward and passes off for her, she's actually wrapping up 30 years? Yeah.
Yeah, her progressed moon is called setting.
Yeah.
Because when planets are in the 12th house headed towards the ascendant, they're setting, and then when they hit the ascendant and go in the first house, they go underneath the horizon line. So she's going through progressed moon setting, which is the end of a 28-year cycle.
Yeah.
It's the end of this phase of her life. It's the cycle of endings, which again started for her back in September 2018, continues until November of this year. So she's wrapping this up, and it's really important for us to talk about this in even greater detail, really dig into this, because 12th house is so important for her for all these reasons I'm laying out. It's deeply connected to her karma, and here she is in this lunar phase. It's very connected to the cycle of life. So if you think about a hummingbird, for example, has a very rapid heart rate and not much life expectancy. And then conversely, you have a whale. A whale has a very long life, very slow heart rate. So it's kind of intuitive, the faster the heart rate, the shorter the life. And of course, they've done studies on this, and they found that's true across the board with all species, except for parrots. Parrots live a lot longer than they should, I've had a suspicion that they're an alien species that were dropped off here. That's just a very...
Sure. Glad.
So anyways, they're kind of the odd bird there. And then the other one is humans. We should, based on our heart rate, live about the same length as one progressed lunar cycle, about 25 to 30 years, which of course, thousands of years ago, we did live about that long, okay? But now we pack in the experience of 3 lifetimes into one body, but the progressed moon, your heart, your feeling, entered the 12th house, okay, September 2018 for you, Jessica. It entered the house of dying, the end of cycle. So you've probably felt on some level that you're dying now, things are ending. Now, of course, when I say that, use that word dying, it has a tremendous emotional impact. I'm sure you have a 100-watt light bulb in between your ears. I'm obviously not talking about the physical death of your body. I'm not trying to predict anything like that, that's just unreliable and also ethically unforgivable. It has nothing to do with that, but it's the symbolism around death, okay? Let's dance with it a minute, okay? If you think about the emotions that would have to arise around the subject of death and dying, not the myth, but the actual reality, okay? It's like if you run into somebody, you say, how you doing? And they say, I feel like I'm dying now. Well, you say, well, are you okay? What's wrong? It can be a cry for help. But you can also picture, a 95-year-old woman at the hospital. She's probably not going to make it out of there alive, but she knows it. She's ready to die. She's lived a good life. She accepts death. She's ready to go home. She's ready to go to the next world. And these feelings aren't negative at all. They're celebratory. They're triumphant. At the end of a life well lived, death can become easier. Okay. Of course, the opposite can happen too, but we're focusing on the higher ground here. Dying with good feelings, ready for what's next. Now, when you go through your progressed moon into the first house, that's going to be a whole new area, and we'll talk about it. But your moon entered the 12th. Basically, what that means, Jessica, is you've played out a way of being. Okay, it's not your body that's dying. It's not your soul. Your soul is immortal. What is it? It's this thing called your personality, your psyche, your psychology. That's what's dying in this lunar progression through the 12th house. It's like a snake shedding its skin. It's time to let go of that stuff, and things can feel like they're falling apart in your life, It's classically correlated with endings, progress moon traveling through the 12th house, which you have deep inner work to do here. And if we're wise and we're mindful, we can realize that these endings have been necessary. Tap into that energy I talked about before with the Neptune. It's all happening for a reason. It's serving a purpose, okay? So inwardly, the evolutionary intention for you has been letting go of your attachment of those things. Stuff that over the last 28 years that has supported your identity, your previous identity, which is leaving. That can be work, that can be relationship, that can be beliefs. It can be your clothes, you're letting go of that stuff, okay? Also, you're in a visionary time, which is beautiful for the new vision for the eclipse. So pay close attention to the last year and some change. Really, 2 years and some change of any visions that have been percolating towards your awareness. Hopefully you've been doing some meditation. If you haven't, I recommend doing it. 12th house is the house of meditation. Not only will meditation and a deepening of your spiritual life right now help you to resist and the formation of any undue attachment. People who really struggle with progressed moon in the 12th house are people who resist change, kicking and screaming as all this stuff is leaving their life. No, some of those changes will likely to be welcome. Some of them may be like, I wish this wasn't changing. I don't want this to leave my life. But of course, classically, 10 years in the future, you'll look back at that moment of that loss and think to yourself, that's the best thing that ever happened to me. So if you can somehow, project your consciousness 10 years into your future self, looking back at this moment, realizing this is the best thing that ever happened to me. Meanwhile, you're meditating, you're developing your spiritual life to let go of those attachments as everything's changing, but also so that you can receive the vision. You're in a visionary time of what this progressed new moon or progressed moon in the first house, the beginning of the new 28 years of your life. You aren't about to enter a new chapter of your life, but a complete new book altogether. And you're going to open that book, and it might be a little scary because you realize every page in that book is blank. And you have to write your new storyline. And post November 2020, as you're writing each new word into chapter 1 of that blank book, each one of those words is binding you to a new storyline, a progression of chapters that will unfold over the next 28 years of your life. You're about to go through, I guess you could say, a mini reincarnation. And from now, especially now, during the solstice, okay, it's about meditation, as Stormie said, contemplation, reflection, inwardness, surrendering to the divine plan, recognizing that these changes were necessary in your life because things need to come to an end classically to make way for this grand new beginning you're about to enter into November 2020 and beyond. Okay. And then from there, you act on it. You act on the vision you've been creating now. You've just shed a personality, and now you create a new one and start writing that new storyline. So the focus now is mysticism, spirituality, consciousness itself. And this eclipse suggests a potential for a radical breakthrough moment and an opening in the quantity of light of your soul. I know that sounds pretty exotic, but with the 12th house, there's this great opportunity for you to grow closer to God. It's about an expansion of consciousness. So raising your consciousness, allowing this 28-year cycle to come to an end so that you can create space for this new vision. So during this eclipse, in a place of receptivity and humility and love for the divine plan, just humbly ask for this new vision to continue to, probably already has trickled in, continue to crystallize in your mind so that you have an idea of this new lifetime that you're about to step into, so to speak.
Yeah. I'm thinking about too at the eclipse time, hopefully you guys can see my cursor. The node, the transiting node will be right on top of this Mercury business that will be happening at the same time the eclipse is happening. And I just am thinking about that opposition with her Neptunian energy in that progress chart as well, that it just, again, it doesn't make all the thinking clear. It doesn't mean everything is completely clear. It means it's the quiet place instead of the like super loud voice. It's the still quiet voice as opposed to the one that is booming and blaring, that's going to actually give you a lot more access to direction, right? But that is the place where it's almost like surrender to win here, because the resistance is futile and it hurts. That's the other thing. Fighting the 12th house hurts, right? Yeah. But if you don't know that it's okay not to fight, or you haven't had your astrology looked at, you haven't had someone who's gone before you, you think you have to fight. It is the nature of the human ego to preserve ourselves. I got to fight to stay alive. And here, Jessica, you can fully embody that maybe the information that's coming through, I mean, it's truths and you're not sure which one's garbage, which one's the good stuff. The small voice is the one giving you the most clarity.
Yeah. And the more you be that spiritual warrior and look at your inner thoughts, your inner dialogue, your inner emotions, and you can analyze that and focus on the more virtuous thoughts and emotions and actions and try to de-energize some of the more negative ones. We all have them. They're in there. You know, we all have those little inner gremlins. And those gremlins, the only way they grow stronger in us is by putting our attention on them. Where attention goes, energy flows. So as you cultivate this spiritual warrior right now, this is how you raise your consciousness. Okay. And, Stormie said it, as these changes have occurred, it can be deeply confusing. The 12th house can feel pretty murky. And by upping your game, your meditation game, upping your reflection game, maybe doing a lot of journaling, you got Mercury right there on your sun in retrograde, really emphasizing that inwardness, the self-exploration. It's just let go, It's like, it's confusing. Yeah, that's okay. It's meant to be confusing.
Sure.
I mean, that's the evolutionary intention here, is to die so you can be reborn. That is the very essence of your healing process right now. And this Cancerian 12th house work is at the core of your journey in this lifetime, emphasized tremendously now. And I say in this lifetime because your North Node is there. North Node of the moon is your karmic medicine. And North Node is very hard to reach because it's opposite from where we've come from, trying to get away from being defined by family, under orders by family and past life experience. And you're trying to get to this more free energy of exploration of consciousness as well as inwardness, being able to lick your own wounds, to self-nurture instead of taking care of everybody else. That's your karmic medicine. And the North Node is not easy to reach because it's opposite from where we've come from. So it takes tremendous effort and force of will to get to it. And you're doing it now. That's the beautiful thing. And Stormie also mentioned ego. Ego will not serve you right now. People who suffer during 12th house times is just, again, that clingy, trying to grab everything before it leaves your life. Just let go, resign to the process, and become that still point through meditation. Okay, this contemplative time, and really rest within the eye of the storm. As everything's changing around you, find that still point within yourself and become a stronger person for it as you raise your consciousness.
And that progressed Mercury, though, he's got it together. That's a 29-degree Mercury. Your ability to Gemini and to be flexible in your thinking is brilliant. You have the capacity to do it. I think I love that. And I love the support of that, of not necessarily mentally strong, but mentally agile, right? And to pull those messages from whatever's coming in between the worlds. And then you get to, oh, good. Okay. And then you get to use that. There's a flexibility that you seem to have available to you. Not to mention, so this is natal. So that's a nice grand trine in air as well.
Really.
Yeah. That is reasonably, where are we at? Reasonably activated. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I didn't even think about that Mercury in her birth chart. You can see it here. It's in its own sign of Gemini. And of course, it being in the 12th house of consciousness. And, Cancer energy is pretty empathic, emotionally sensitive. And then you have this very psychically sensitive Mercury and Gemini in the 12th house. And Stormie talked about listening to that still small voice within. And I think based on your birth chart, you have the ability to hear that small voice, to tap into those higher dimensions of reality, to talk to your angels or your spirit guide or your soul family or all of the above, just being able to get that guidance and receive it. And that guidance from your helper spirits will also help you to give you some information, help to give you the vision, the download that you're poised to get right now during this heavy 12th house stimulus. So just pull that through. And quieting the mind to quell the riot inside will help you to hear that guidance. You're very psychically sensitive. So yeah, you're in a great position to work well with these energies. And, karmically, you're benefiting so much from this variety of energies. It's like, you know, your angels are watching you closely with their eyes wide, and they have popcorn out, and, you know, they're waiting to see what you're going to do over the next 5 or 6 months. And then, hurrah, here we go. New book, new storyline. So very exciting stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I picked your chart, Jessica.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, right? You said new book, new storyline. And I'm looking at this chart and thinking of the rest of the transits that are coming along as well. And I'm like, whoa, Jessica, are you about to write a new book? Right? Are you?
Nice.
Oh, as Mars, as Mars continues to travel as well. Here we're in the ninth house. He's doing some travel over there at this particular time. And as he continues around, we come to November. This progressed moon does some moving on. This could be a really strong landing where we genuinely see Jessica in some form of written or expressed material in the world in the way that we've never seen her before. So this will be quite interesting. Yay for you. New relationships would come from that as well. So, ooh.
Exciting. Is Jessica on the air? Is she on the chat?
I don't see her down here, which is
Ah,
such a bummer because we would have loved to have gotten some confirmation from her for sure. But I'm sure
yeah.
she'll be watching back and leaving it in the comment section down below. I love when that happens too. So,
Yeah. If you're comfortable with that, Jessica, leave some comments. I love talking about the symbols, but I think I love just as much as hearing about how the symbols have come alive in your life, you know. Not for really the confirmation. I've been doing this long enough to believe in it. You know, obviously it's like, it's kind of a confirming thing. Actually, when I started learning astrology, I went into it trying to disprove it. And I was like, this is freaky accurate, but there's no possibility it can be right. But the more I studied it, the more I was convinced. So anyhow, yeah, but more so just, I just love hearing about how the symbols really, feel even on an inward level, but even, how it happens existentially. Of course, if you don't want to share, that's totally cool too. But,
yeah.
that's part of the fun as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, Bryan, I feel like we just took a full exploration of this
Yeah.
eclipse coming up. And like Bryan said, he's going to have some meditation and more explanation of this eclipse happening over on his channel. I'll make sure that you guys have all of the links in the description box down below so you can go over and check it out for sure. And keep in mind, if you're following me on Facebook or Instagram, this is where I put out and ask for charts. So if you are thinking when I'm sitting with a guest, I would love to have my chart, consider those are the places that you're going to find me to be able to submit your chart information to, like Jessica did for us today. So if that's something you're interested in, just make sure you're following me on those platforms. And Bryan, thanks for coming back. I'm sure this is not the last time.
Yeah. I doubt it would be the last time. And yeah, thank you again for having me. I have a blast doing these with you. So thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you guys, coming up later in the week, we are not done with eat and greets and all of the good stuff, but tomorrow I'm going to take a field trip and head over to the crew at astrologyhub.com, where we're going to be talking about what's coming up in the next 6 months in terms of the astrological transits and energy that's out in the cosmic weather for us. And we're going to be answering some questions. It's free. You can find that down below as well. So make sure you get signed up and check that out. Then we have David Cochran coming on Thursday, and Sam Reynolds will be here on Friday. So it's a good week of astrology learning. And of course, all of the other eat and greets are still up. So check those out, dig in. This is the time we're inside. Take advantage of all of the learning and information. So everybody in the chat is saying goodbye, Bryan.
Goodbye, all. It's been a pleasure.
Bye, guys. We will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.